Oh, just in time. That's why they call him Justin.
That's why they call me Mr. Time.
Just in time. How's it going? Hot off the set of Weird Things.
Yes. Yes. I gotta keep it, gotta keep myself light on my toes.
Yeah.
Mr. Merritt. I gotta make sure that I'm moving, limber.
I was actually delaying the live stream a little bit because I was watching you guys, and then I see you say, I gotta go. I'm like, oh, I better start the live stream.
Yeah. That's where I'm headed.
So, of course, we're here to talk about Holloway's hat trick and the Blues starting the post-Olympic half of the season hot, 5-1 win over the Kraken. Justin, Stanley Cup or just finals for the Blues? What do you think?
It's a tough place to come out of the West. So we'll see. Maybe they're going to run into Hellebuck, and they've had his number in the past, but.
Yeah,
maybe
he'll still be looking at his Congressional Medal of Honor.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they can distract him.
Now he's the Secretary of Defense since we're not using that title anymore. So,
well, we are using that title, but you know what? Let's start there because we're going to talk about the whole Anthropic thing. I find it interesting because the whole Secretary of War and the Department of War thing is a title that the administration is using, and they have the right to use it. They're put it on their website and everything, but they haven't changed the name of the department. So to call it Department of Defense is not wrong. That is also still the technical name of the department. They haven't gone and changed it. You're allowed to have it's like a sub brand basically. That is the Department of War. So I usually call it the Department of Defense myself because I'm like, well, it's still technically the name and they might change it back in 3 years. So let's just not go crazy. I have no problem calling it Department of War, but I try to keep it, consistent. It's been really interesting watching this Anthropic thing to see an outlet like, I don't know, let me just pick one, Axios, go from insistently calling it Department of Defense, until they start publishing stories about Anthropic holding the line against the Department of War.
Yeah, I don't know exactly from the journalism side where that goes, because at a certain point there is a site-wide style guide,
right?
And that
Bloomberg
has to be
Department
decided
of Defense
on
the whole way.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not changing it till it's officially changed. And I haven't seen them waver from that.
That also might be a situation where the Department of War tells them like, hey, because there's been a lot of conversations about who does and who doesn't get press access to the Pentagon these days. It's like, we are not going to let you in if you don't use the proper nomenclature. So that might not be story specific. I think that's probably there are more tectonic plates underneath that decision, but there's no doubt that this story is fascinating for many different reasons. It's a huge business story. It's a huge political story. It's a huge technology story. And obviously it's a huge national defense story, although that crowd is not quite as, well read. It's more of a niche interest. But where do you want to start on this one?
Yeah. I mean, Jason and Jen did a great job kind of covering the nuts and bolts of it on DTNS today. You just did a in-depth discussion with Andrew and Brian about it for a long time. So I'm tempted to want to widen it out a little bit and talk less about the nuts and bolts of Anthropic, because we'll just cover that for those who may have missed those other outlets, but I encourage you to go consume them all. Anthropic is upset that their contract says you can't use this for harmful things, and that's not the actual language of the contract, but just generally speaking, and among those are massive surveillance and killing people, autonomous systems, deadly autonomous systems. And the Pentagon is not saying, no, we want to stick it in a robot right now. They're saying, no, we want to be free to do anything that might lead to that. As long as it's a legal thing, as long as there's no law against it.
They are specifically pushing back on the fact that either of those two things are either imminent or that they would do any of them. Specifically with massive surveillance, they say that they are constrained by the law on that. And with the autonomous stuff, they say, we agree it's not ready. We want to preserve the right that it can be ready.
at some point.
And we would like a partner that will work with us on things like that.
As long as it's legal, we want to be able to do it. And Anthropic is saying, nah, there's some things that are legal we're not comfortable with, and we put that in the contract. So, you want to rip up the contract? And Pentagon said, yes, we do. We want to rip up the contract. That's exactly what we want to do. OpenAI sort of coming in on the side of Anthropic, but also saying Sam Altman, because he's very Sam Altman, has an engineering way to fix it. Like, yeah, we can abide by the Pentagon's demands, but we'll just do it in the cloud. And then anything that would be down the road violating that would be unfeasible because it's not a locally operated system.
Yeah. I read that. I mean, and look, let me just say this for the DTNS audience. Guys, we have lived lean for years and years and years without good tech beef. But I'm here to tell you that meat is back on the menu. Oh, hopefully it gets just as good as Apple versus Microsoft or Apple versus Google or any of these stories where you've got people that have big personalities at the top that
we're not talking a little tiff over RCS anymore.
No, we're talking about Steve Jobs dragging Eric Schmidt to a Starbucks so he could say that I'm going to commit thermonuclear war against you because Android is stolen product. That level of absolute classic Silicon Valley nerd on nerd hatred, because we've got that back with OpenAI and Anthropic. So I don't believe that there is anything that is done from either side that is done in favor of the other ones. If you guys are unaware about the origins of Anthropic, they were OpenAI employees that decided to leave. There's dispute. There are many different versions of exactly under what circumstances they wanted to leave and assurances that were made that might not have been honored, but that is for the historians to eventually tell. All you need to know is that they don't like each other, and they things have only gotten more contentious over the last year, despite the fact that they all know each other. Like, these companies are still small enough that most people that work there worked either with or at the one at OpenAI together.
Yeah.
All that
including
being said,
Elon.
Well, yeah, I mean, Elon's his own. He's his own kind of vector and all.
I'm just saying, this is a rich and hearty stew we have pulled these meals out of.
Indeed, but with Anthropic, what a lot of people don't know is that Anthropic was the first AI company to run to the national security apparatus to get contracts and money, and it was initially with the CIA and the NSA that they were working with them to build stuff. That's the reason why they have top secret clearance right now. The reason why OpenAI doesn't have top secret clearance wasn't because OpenAI wasn't interested in doing stuff like that. It was that Anthropic volunteered themselves to be in that situation. So that's why they are here right now. All that is to say that when Sam Altman comes out and says, look, we share these red lines and we're willing to work with the Pentagon and we think we have a technical workaround, what it is saying is two different things. Number one, they are willing to work with the Pentagon. And if what the Pentagon needs right now is an off-ramp to let Anthropic not take up that contract, but they need somebody to do stuff, OpenAI is saying, we are here for you. The second part of it is, I think, probably the more pressing thing, and this is the catty element that I think people have not picked up on. Sam's point is, look at what I'm saying. There's a technical solution to this. If we have problems and you have desires, we can make everybody happy. If we and I have control of my company enough that we would be able to make that happen. Also, this is not me going public. This is a internal memo that is going out around the world, right? This can be quiet. That's the biggest problem with what's happened between Anthropic and the Department of War, that this is as public as it is, that you have Dario writing adversarial blog posts. You have the Undersecretary of War calling Dario a liar with a God complex. These kinds of contracts are not supposed to be negotiated in public. To even demonstrate that there is a weakness of your contractors is not something that anybody at the Pentagon wants. They don't want our enemies to know that we don't have a great relationship with our AI supplier. Like that is antithetical to everything that happens in that organization. What Sam Altman was saying in that statement, in my opinion, is we're adults. We're not going to let this get as weird and ugly as it has gotten with Anthropic.
Yeah, and I heard you on Weird Things saying that you noted that the original story came from the tech reporter side of this. So,
well, this is my own assumption is that I think that when there's the big story that explains how this got so ugly in 2 weeks or whatever, that the story, I'm going to guess, the story is going to be there was a riot inside Anthropic Slack when there was a news report that came out that Claude was used in the Venezuelan operation to kidnap Nicolas Maduro. And that brought a lot of things to a head. It brought a lot of pressure on Dario, and it brought a lot of these issues that were kind of in the background to a head. And the Pentagon, which, you know, has already had some issues with Anthropic in the past, was just not going to have it. And now either side really has an off-ramp, but the Pentagon doesn't need one. Like the Pentagon will just give somebody else top secret clearance and somebody else will get that contract. And Anthropic, I don't know if I can say that, you know.
Yeah. Have you read this Washington Post story? I have not. That it was a discussion about a hypothetical nuclear missile attack that led to Claude. Washington Post breaking that one a couple hours ago. That, you know, it was I don't know if it was a war game or just kind of, you know, discussions. I haven't, like I said, I haven't read the story yet, but it looks like we're getting part of that story you're talking about.
Okay, already. Good. Yeah, I'm excited to read that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, it's almost worse. It's almost like that this is not something that ever. Well, I mean, look, if you are cashing the check from the Pentagon, you got to understand where that comes from, right? Like this is about killing bad guys in defense of the United States of America. That's what the Pentagon is, right? Sure. There's a line for your morality on one side of it, but once you take that check, it's hard for you to put the brakes on, because who are you to put the brakes on the defense of the United States of America? Now, you can make the argument that you don't like these people that are currently running it, or you think that they're bad, or you think that they're reckless, and that's fine, but it's not your job to vet them. That's the job of the people of the United States of America, and that you get who you get. And so either you can take the check or you can't. And the fact, again, that it's gotten this public is just kind of crazy to me.
Well, this seems like it's a little bit more personal management skills failing somewhere than it is a principled stand. And again, this does go kind of back to Altman saying like, yeah, we could actually have a principled stand and not piss off the Department of Defense.
Yes.
You know, or Department of War, either one. And this sounds like, and again, I shouldn't speculate too much before I actually read the article, but it sounds like they're saying, so, you know, in the event of a nuclear missile attack, it would be good to have the option to, you know, have a system that analyzes that and, you know, and can respond faster than humans could to knock those down. You know, when we get the Golden Dome up and stuff, and Anthropic go, well, yeah, except, you know, that wouldn't be allowed under the contract. And then it just becomes, what do you mean it wouldn't be allowed?
What do you mean? Yeah. But why do you get to have a unilateral line on X, Y, and Z?
Whereas a you know, a more circumspect way would be like, yes, that is an interesting scenario that we would have to tease out all of the implications from and just let it sit.
Yeah, or just to, you know, that you are looking to find the way to yes as opposed to
exactly.
gatekeeping the no.
That would cause a problem with our autonomous systems clause, but maybe we could dot.
And that's like, to me, that's what I read in that OpenAI thing was like, walk across the street and deal with adults. We're here for you. And it's not going to be, a polycule politics.
Which of course we should immediately point out that you produce the OpenAI official podcast.
I'm a shill. So yeah.
So don't believe anything Justin says.
Stir your shill opinions into there.
But I don't produce it. And that kind of makes sense to me too.
Yeah, well, look, and again, I don't think anybody at OpenAI would be thrilled with me saying that I think that these people hate each other, right? Because I don't think that they would say that in their own words. That's me saying that. I just don't. I personally don't think that the way this was spun was OpenAI locking arms with Anthropic, saying like.
Well, what's funny is I first heard about the story when you texted me about it. So my original impression was like, Sam's playing a very clever diplomatic game. How very Sam Altman of him to come with an engineering solution to an interpersonal problem. That is definitely on brand. And then I read like somebody else, I don't know, it was TechCrunch or somebody like OpenAI backs Anthropic. I'm like, that's not how I read it. Yeah. And then I had to go back and like, yeah, I guess if you squint, they are, but I don't think that's their intention.
I mean, they have a tricky path to walk as well, because it's not like there's people inside OpenAI that are thrilled that they want to be in that business.
40 of them signed that letter, probably more by now, that said, please don't violate these principles. Don't allow autonomous systems to be lethal.
And also it's like, just beyond that, I do know that there's a situation, or there's a thought, around OpenAI. I don't know if it's internal to OpenAI, that maybe they have already spread themselves thinner than they should, and they should be focusing on more specific things. And so do you want to add government contractor that is building X, Y, and Z on top of that? That was fine that Anthropic was taking that lane. OpenAI should be focused on its frontier science models. It should be focused on ChatGPT. It should be focused on Sora. It should be focused on whatever, right? And there are people inside. Well, I don't know if there's people inside. There's people around OpenAI that think maybe even some of those things were distractions, and that they should be focusing more on other stuff, because this kind of gets to everything when you talk about the current AI boom that I think oftentimes people miss. Is that the entire industry is compute constrained. They can only do what they have compute for. There's much more that they want to do, either in building products, serving products, or building models, training models that they would want compute for, that they just simply don't have. And that's what is at the heart of the race to build these data centers, which is another big element that is taking up a lot of headlines.
I mean, OpenAI also got to say scoreboard today.
Biggest funding round in history.
$730 billion pre-money valuation, which that just basically means like, we're guessing, we're pre-money, but you usually guess low. So that's a really big number for pre-money valuation.
It is. It's also, look, this is such a AI in a lot of, let me ask you, because I have learned as a young pupil to you, the sensei in this world, but like, it feels like the AI boom is like so many booms that we've seen in the past, but speed run. Like we're like at like 7x the speed. Like imagine the time from when Google was a big company to the moment that they had their first kerfuffle with like, do we become a defense contractor, or do we own Boston Dynamics if they want to make, put a gun in this robot's dog's hand or whatever. Like that was like it was like 6 years, it feels 6-7 years of Google being like a very big company. We're like on year 2 of OpenAI being a company that people know the name of, and Anthropic probably even less so, or definitely even less so, because they've been around a shorter amount of time. And we're already at the first blow up with the Department of Defense, where the employees are like, no, don't use our technology to kill people. Like everything does just seem to be going so much faster.
Yeah. I think it makes me wonder what the upper limit on that is, because, very back of the envelope calculation, every disruptive technological innovation moves faster than the previous one. The industrial revolution and steam engines, moved over decades. The computer revolution of the mid 20th century moved over years. The dot-com boom moved over months, and this one's moving in days.
Yeah.
At some point, there is a lower limit. So I don't know what that is. And I tend to look at things and say, this is very similar to what's happened before. It's just happening a little faster, but they all happen a little faster. And they generally follow the same curve, some more than others. And it is the disruption between the introduction of the technology and adapting to it where any damage happens, where any dangerous things happens, but eventually we adapt and we figure out to subsume it, how to live with it. And every time there are people who say, yeah, but this time is different. Up until now, they've been wrong. Is this the time it's different? Nobody knows until it all gets resolved. But me believing one way or the other doesn't really have much of an effect. So I find it more comforting to believe that this time won't be different and look for the signs that we are adapting to it.
So here are one of the things that are, again, bigger and faster of everything, and that is these funding rounds and the fact that OpenAI has locked down the biggest funding round in the history of business, right? Gaudy numbers all around, big players, SoftBank, NVIDIA, Amazon, that are a part of it. The doomer argument is, oh my God, why did the three biggest, smartest investors in the history of technology just throw their money at OpenAI so they can cover their losses and continue to burn gigantic mountains of cash because they are operating an upside down business that is losing money?
Obviously, it's because investors suddenly don't know what they're doing.
Yes. The optimist side. And so if you want to do the doomer side, what you do is you look at all the money that OpenAI is burning, and they are burning a tremendous amount of money. Now, yes. I think that is a little where I criticize the doomers is like, well, how much of that money is operating and how much of that money is investing and building in new compute? Because what OpenAI will tell you, and you can watch the OpenAI podcast to have the CFO explain it to you directly, is they have watched bolted on their amount of compute, 2x that is their revenue. Mm-hmm. Every time that they add more compute, they add 2 times the revenue. And they are at a tremendous uptick in their revenue. Now, at a certain point, they will have enough compute that can serve inferences at a low enough cost that they will not need to build new versions to do it. That is their assumption. And they will get the argument.
That's when you hit the curve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The argument for that is every time there's a new model, it's cheaper and faster. Mm-hmm. It's not like these models are getting more expensive. They are getting exponentially cheaper each and every time. And you're already seeing some things that have hit the saturation point in terms of product. Transcription, for example, is something that still we're not even, I think, halfway through the revolution that will happen in technology with just folding in transcription into everything and all the things that we can do with that. But now we've got models, cheap models, if not free models in certain cases, that can handle transcription on a level that is phenomenal.
I used one this week. Like I needed to take one of these Friday Hangouts, pull out a transcript, and then extract all of the product recommendations for it. And I downloaded an open source model and got the transcription out of it. And did it in time for the mailbag on Tuesday.
And so now can you do, and this is where the products are going to come in, can you take that transcription and then make the intelligent decision, not only to transcribe it, but then the intelligent decision autonomously to then do the thing with it, whatever the thing, turn it into action items, turn it into an email, turn it into a blog post, whatever the product then is. Those services are going to be cheap enough to be served from these servers that the money that will come in from it will just be also continue to be exponential from API usage. Vinod Khosla, again on the OpenAI podcast, the same one with the CFO. It's a very good episode. You should listen to it. Made the argument
producers
that,
are good. I don't know about the episode.
No, the guests do all the work. The host's fine too. Vinod Khosla made the argument that, hey, the only thing that matters is API calls. And right now, API calls for AI are through the roof. It is a hockey stick pointing up. It has not wavered, and it will continue to shoot up. So if you believe that, and you believe that investment in compute creates revenue, and you believe that downstream there will be more and more instances where you're going to be able to create very cost-effective inference servicing, then this deal makes all the sense in the world. And you got to imagine that some of the smartest investors that have ever existed, including SoftBank and NVIDIA and Amazon, are seeing that and believing that as well. By the way, Amazon, a very big investor in Anthropic, now part of this gigantic funding round with OpenAI.
I think it is quite likely that these tools turn out to be useful. But I don't feel, and that is a controversial statement to say these days to some people. Like, no, these tools are going to turn out to be useful. It is not impossible that the investors are wrong. Investors can be very rationally wrong. Happens all the time. More often than not, the investors are right. That plays out, but they're not 100% right. So they could be wrong. Usually when they're wrong, they're temporarily wrong, or they're pointed in the wrong direction. They put all their money in OpenAI, and it turned out the next Google arose and stole OpenAI's thunder and turned OpenAI into Alta Vista. It's stuff like that happens, but generally the technology and stuff, you don't see people investing in it if it doesn't have a use. I also think that a lot of the adoption is misallocated. A lot of companies are not listening to what the actual makers of the tools are telling them. And I think this gets lost out there. I think a lot of people think, oh, OpenAI and Anthropic, they're out there peddling their wares and trying to convince anybody who will take it to use their stuff, their snake oil for whatever. And frankly, I've heard the opposite from some people that like, no, we told that company what it was good for, and they just went and implemented it in a totally different way that's not going to work for them, and then they're going to be disappointed. But we hope we can, still be able to provide them a product once they figured that out on their own. But a lot of companies are just like saying, go use this tool. And then people say, no, okay, I guess I use the tool. They use it for something inconsequential, say it doesn't really work, but I have to use it. So I'll use it for something stupid every month and actually decrease productivity because of it. And then everybody says, look, see, these tools are not good for productivity. When in fact, proper use of them probably means using them for a limited set of things until they're good enough to do other things. And then you add them to that thing. We had a great conversation over email on DTNS last week from developers saying, what I find is when I act as a developer and do all the things that actually a developer does, which is not the tedious bit of coding, but designing and planning and putting requirements out, these tools help me a lot. When I leave that part to them, they're not good enough for that. They might get there. And in fact, they're getting closer all the time. But right now, it really needs me to decide what they should do and plan it out. And it will always need a human to decide what the human wants to do with it. That part isn't going away because we're humans, right? And so everybody's like, oh, we're just going to hand over the AIs and they will run everything. I'm like, pretty sure we won't ever do that. That is not in our nature as humans to hand over things to other things.
I mean, like it is, but never on a level that matters to us, right? I mean, if you think about the things that the personal computer took off our hands, like I had an argument with somebody, I forget who it was, but they were talking about like, oh, this is the only revolution where we are creating a thing that's smarter than us. And I'm like, no, my Apple IIgs was better at math than me. It could do it faster. It could do it longer. It can program and compile things that wouldn't otherwise that I can't do. But we just don't think of that as the intelligence that matters right now. Yeah. So now we are in a place where it's like, I'm sure back then they did. They're like, wait a minute. but it can do arithmetic, and so like I'm not going to be writing it in the ledger and hitting on an adding machine.
Right.
Like, oh my God, that's a crazy thing. It's taking this huge element of our economy and it's
took
going to
a lot of
it.
jobs. Computers took a lot of jobs, and people were worried about it. I remember people being worried about. I sat with my grandpa in his house, and my grandpa was like, "Do you think these computers are going to take all the jobs?" And we would talk about that stuff. And it turned out, no, they actually ended up creating enough new jobs, and they were close enough in skills that you didn't see a lot of people thrown out of work. You saw a lot of people transitioning and new roles being created. We never had a lot of product managers in the 1960s. We never had a lot of administrative assistants in the 1960s. You had secretaries and you had typing pools. Those are gone. You have these others now. That was a nice smooth transition. Not all the transitions are smooth. We've also, had people throwing their wooden shoes into the machines because it threw them out of work and they weren't immediately able to find another job. So I'm not trying to say there won't be disruption like that. There might be, but it doesn't have to be. It's not a foregone conclusion.
You think the block employees are going to be throwing wooden shoes at Jack?
They're going to be throwing wooden blocks at Jack. Glad you brought that up. I think that's not a good move by Jack. Oh, I understand his reasoning on paper of like, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get it done now. Usually the smart move is to say, hey, we don't need these roles anymore, but y'all are very smart and good at things. What else can you do that will add value to the company we couldn't have otherwise? Getting rid of 40% at once, I feel like that's just opening the door for Stripe to eat your lunch.
My favorite thing that happened in the wake of that was the reactions. Wall Street all over it. Oh my God, he fired a bunch of people because Wall Street loves it when you fire a bunch of people.
Saved cost.
Here we go. All right, awesome. Let's reward him. And then you had employees from Square and Twitter saying like, yeah, look, I'm all here for the dystopian doom cycle, but my job was to sit on a MacBook and have lunch, and I never got any jobs. So Jack-run companies tend to have a lot of fat, and so if he fired a bunch of people, then that's the case. Here's my thought, and I'm with you. And this is just a general rule, whether or not you're Jack Dorsey or you're somebody else. Nobody wants to hear you talk about AI, and nobody is more of an AI optimist than I am. I am at the 1% edge of, I think this is going to be a jobs boom. I think this is going to be a deflationary world where everything is going to be cheaper and easier for us. I think that it is going to be a tremendous gain, that by the time that I close my eyes for the final time, I will be very happy that I got to experience as much of this world that is existing now. And I'm thrilled to be raising a child in it. And nobody wants to hear it. Like, don't tell me about what you're gonna do. Don't tell me about what you think is working. Show me your innovations. Mm-hmm. Show me what you are doing. Show me why Block is a better company today than it was a year ago because you're applying this. And if you're firing people past that, then that's fine. But you're demonstrating that you're a totally different company. If you just say, oh, internally, boy, we've seen if we flatten out these orgs and it just goes so much faster. It's so amazing. And I'm a bold visionary for firing people. Like, you're doing all of the thing we don't like and none of the things we do. Where's the cool products? Where's the cool services? Is everything cheaper? Is everything faster? Is everything the things that we like? No. You have the same product that you had yesterday, except you fired a bunch of people. Yeah. Like, this goes to the same thing. Nobody wants to hear that you use AI to research. Nobody wants to hear that you used AI to develop the soundscape. Nobody wants to hear that you used AI to do X, Y, and Z. Guess what? Everyone's doing all of that at all time. And so if you get your favorite product faster, better, cheaper than you would before, you can almost guarantee that AI was at the root of it. But nobody wants to hear it. No. Everybody just wants the thing. Just give me the damn widget, Jack.
And to that, Stealth Dave asked which widget I used to do the transcription. It was Mac Whisper, which is just an app wrapper for the open source Whisper protocol that OpenAI put out as an open source transcription agent. So there it is. To your answer, Stealth Dave. Here is a thing that I used to do an actual thing.
By the way, breaking news here from the New York Times to follow up on our first story. Trump orders government to stop using Anthropic after Pentagon standoff.
Did you see it anywhere else?
Yes, Truth Social.
Okay. All right. I actually will buy that as a primary source. Then
yeah. Oh, Jesus.
What?
All caps. The United States will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and wins wars. That decision belongs to your commander in chief and the tremendous leaders that I appoint to run the military. The left-wing nut jobs at Anthropic have made a disastrous mistake trying to strong arm the Department of War and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution. Their selfishness is putting American lives at risk and troops in danger and our national security in jeopardy. I therefore am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease use of all Anthropic's technology. We don't need it. We don't want it. We will not do business with them again. There will be a 6-month phase-out period for agencies like the Department of War who are using Anthropic's products at various levels. Anthropic better get their act together and be helpful during this phase-out period, or I will use the full power of the presidency to make them comply with major civil and criminal consequences to follow. We will decide the fate of our country, not some out-of-control, radical left AI company run by people who have no idea what the real world is all about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump.
Okay, so let me translate that. Anthropic and the Department of Defense have not come to an agreement.
No.
So that contract is now going to end. And Anthropic, like they said they would, will help them transition over 6 months to a new provider, which I'm going to guess might be OpenAI. Also, I mean, he said I will direct them. I'm curious if he will, but I definitely think this means that the contract isn't getting signed. Never believe anything put on a post by anybody anywhere until it's actually like official.
No, I mean, obviously you want to, this is a delicate dance to take Donald Trump, the president of the United States, seriously, but sometimes not literally when it comes to social media posts. What is notable on one side is he is saying that this is a wider issue. This is now, throughout all departments, right? This is what he's saying. Now, whether or not that would be the
that's
case,
what I'm saying. I never pay attention to what he says. I pay attention to what he does. So we'll see if that happens.
We'll see. But that is the widening. Here's where it is not as wide. He does not mention that he is going to name it a supply chain risk. And that was the other big sort of Damocles that was hanging over all this that does really have downstream effects for Anthropic.
Yeah, I never think that was going to happen personally, but it's a leverage thing. So, yeah.
But then again, I didn't think that this was going to get to this point.
Well, okay. So this may be helping us answer the question we were trying to tease around on politics when I was on most recently, which is
when
how
we
are the different parties
all of this? My God.
How are the different parties going to handle AI? And I was like, it seems like everybody's against it politically. Right. It's not popular to be for it. Like you were just saying, nobody wants to hear about it.
Yeah.
But this looks to be pointing towards, well, there's our AI companies and there's their AI companies. And depending on which party you want to support, those are different. Right. So I feel like maybe that is a blueprint where each party can say, we are firmly against the abuse of these AI tools by the bad companies. Thank goodness for the good companies that are trying to use it responsibly and save the water in the data centers and keep the autonomous tools from killing us all, ... What do you think?
I mean, dumber arguments have been made in politics. So I will never bet on a dumb argument being made in this world. It is, that is what
I wasn't sure how we were going to have both parties be against AI and score any points, but I think I get it now.
I also don't know if that stays. I mean,
yeah,
the problems for Anthropic are the same problems for OpenAI. The difference is that OpenAI has more users than Anthropic does. And so Anthropic doesn't have to face these problems immediately. Like part of the reason why Claude has been able to get traction with consumers who are using it is that even though you're rate limited more on the free plan, you are able to use their reasoning models more freely than OpenAI is able to, because OpenAI has to deal with a lot more people that are trying to use it. And so you wind up getting switched to dumber models more often because they are trying to guess when you are asking a simple question and when you're asking a complex question. Claude will let you, like think on it for however long it needs to, because there's not that many people using it. And that's, it's just different strokes for different folks. They're all trying to solve different problems.
Definitely have run into people who virtue signal that they use Claude.
Wow.
Like, OpenAI I don't trust. Grok is just evil. I use Claude, right?
Yeah. I mean, and look, maybe this is the beginning of like the blue skyification of Anthropic, and this is for the effete woke liberal to do X, Y, and Z. I don't think that OpenAI wants to necessarily be labeled as a MAGA version of it, but like I think XAI is happy with that label. They would rather be the like #1 MAGA red, white, and blue.
But I've definitely seen the other side too, which is like, I don't use any of those limp-wristed models. I use Grok, the freedom model.
Exactly, because it'll say X, Y, and Z, which like
Howard says, I'm not virtue signaling, but I do use Claude. It's okay. Like just the use of Claude does not mean you're virtue signaling or Grok, either way.
Everybody, what I think is the reality of these tools is that they're tremendously personal. Part of the reason why I'm all in with ChatGPT is not just because I'm a total shill, but like, because I believe the moat is the memory. The fact that I am giving it so much of my data, it knows so much of what I do, that I use Atlas almost exclusively, because the more it knows about me, the better of an assistant it is. So if you are doing that with Claude, or you're doing that with Grok, or you're doing that with your own open source models or anything, and you got a system to do that kind of thing, then awesome. That's great. Like, I think everyone's going to have their own preference here. And like everything in the world, it'll be poisoned by politics, because of course it will.
Yeah.
I still am just baffled that this got to this level, that it got to explosive Truth Social post level, and it wasn't just something that could be settled, especially if it was, and I got to read that WAPO story, like especially if it was a hypothetical how many nuclear warheads could dance on the head of a pin situation that then turned into a civil war between these two sides.
No, that is the most unusual part of this. And I know you were talking about that on Weird Things quite a bit, is that it just, you don't see this happen in public. It happens, but you don't see it happen in public like this. And that is certainly not the most unusual thing that has happened lately, but it is among them for sure. Kuya just joined in the chat room, was asking, what's this about? Anthropic had provisions that said it would not allow its tools to be used for mass surveillance or lethal autonomous uses. The Pentagon wanted them to change that to be like, as long as we don't use it for anything illegal. And they weren't saying we're going to put it in a robot to kill people. They were just saying we want the contract terms changed. And the two got into a shouting match on the internet and in the world in front of everyone about it. And it looks like Anthropic's going to lose its contract over it.
Which is what Anthropic wants and said that they wanted. If there's not going to be a change,
what they want is for the Department of Defense to agree not to cross those red lines. But if they won't do that, which
but again, it's like also like
they're willing to.
When has that ever been a reasonable thing to ask for a defense contractor? Like, that's like the craziest thing to me, is that it's like, that's not a thing that normally happens. You don't normally say,
well, then why did they get the contract? I mean, that is the other side of this. Like, well, then you shouldn't have given the contract to Anthropic if that was in their terms. Like, come on.
Well, number one, Anthropic got top secret clearance under the old regime.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the only, they are
one government. It's one government. You don't get to play that game with a contract. Like that's the way it works.
Yeah, they got the deal.
Talk about being an adult, grow up. Like
they have a top secret clearance. Nobody else has a top secret clearance, right? Like, sure. So you can do unclassified stuff. There's a lot of people that do work in there. There's only one player that does that, and it's because Anthropic made a deal with the CIA when they were first starting, and so that's why they have that top secret clearance, and so that's why they're being used here. So this was, I mean, there's more going into that than I think some people are talking about. What's crazy is that, to me, the way I've understood defense contracts is that if you want to get into that world, which is very lucrative, there have been many houses bought in Virginia because of getting involved in defense contracting.
It's not a poor man's game.
Part of the deal is you have an abiding faith in your government, which is a euphemism to say, if I'm taking the money, I gotta shut up. Like that's usually the deal. That is what happens when you get these things. And so
yeah, you don't go public with it.
That's the crazy. That's where it's like
one thing to say, like, sorry, this is the contract. I don't know, how we get around this. But then to again, we don't know how it went public, but how it went public is going to be a very important part of my opinion about what happened.
Yeah. Anyway, but it does seem like headed to a divorce.
So Anthropic is the Democrat one. Grok is the Republican one. I just need to know, right? Now, help me out, Justin.
There was
which
a controversial
cancer is Republican and which cancer is Democrat? I want to get the right one.
Well, breast cancer is obviously Democrat.
Obviously.
Prostate cancer is obviously Republican.
Obviously.
So. Come on, don't ask stupid questions.
I'm so tired of all that. Hey, I think I can't let Justin come to a hangout without us talking about journalism, the most important topic beyond nuclear war, beyond the end of civilization. That is the real topic. And I'm very excited to talk about Netflix suddenly backing out of the whole acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery, which will now be acquired by Paramount Skydance. This is another one of those where everybody is leaping forward to make it Netflix was the Democrat acquirer and Paramount is the Republican acquirer. There are certainly some things that might lead you to believe that. I totally understand, but I don't think that's the driving narrative here. Although there are plenty of people who can profit and raise money by making it that narrative. Don't let them raise money off of you with that narrative. I love the Paul Anka story. I'm sure Brian has told you the Paul Anka story, right? Somebody must have told you the Paul Anka story.
No, tell me about the Paul Anka story.
Paul Anka gave an interview to Deadline in December in advance for publication now because he just had an album drop. So, they did the interview early and then they ask a bunch of questions so that they have a lot to work with when they publish it in February. One of the questions they asked Paul Anka was, what do you think of the acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery by Netflix? And I need to go and find the exact quote, if you'll give me a moment. Paul Anka said to them in December, who knows? Ted Sarandos is very close to Zaslav. Zaslav is the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. Yeah. Sometimes these guys do each other a favor. It's an old Vegas trick. You want to sell a hotel? You go to your buddy and you say, give me an offer. Just pretend you're in the game. And they float it out there and it starts this bidding war. I still think it's going to be Paramount that winds up with it.
That's funny. That's so funny.
I have been of the gut instinct. I'm like, I don't know. I think Netflix still gets it because I bought in to the pattern that Netflix says they won't do something and then they do it. And they said they never needed to acquire a studio. I'm like, well, this fits the pattern, right? They said they'd never do live sports. They said they'd never do ads. But all the experts were saying they thought it was going to be Paramount. And I told Brian on Cord Killers this week, listen, if Warner Brothers decides that Paramount's new latest offer is superior and Netflix doesn't even counter, I think Paul Anka might have been right.
Paul
That's
Anka
exactly
was
what
right.
happened. That's exactly what happened. Netflix didn't even counter. They got the $31 a share offer where Paramount will take on all the debt. They'll pay the breakup fee. And they looked at each other and said, I don't think we can get any more. And Netflix said, too rich for my blood, you know? So I guess you win, David Ellison.
I don't like, all respect to Paul Anka, a living legend who certainly has probably seen enough Las Vegas hotel deals in his long and distinguished life that he can understand the pattern. If this is just a feint, it's a pretty high risk feint that tanked the Netflix stock for a period of time.
I can't imagine it's just a feint. Netflix had to be willing to buy Discovery.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I think that David Zaslav really did want to work with Ted Sarandos. I think that probably if you look at of those deals, if Zaslav gets to be, I mean, this is a guy who lives in what's the kid stays in the picture, the famous producer and studio head. She had a smile that would go for ages. Sparkling, you betcha. A body to kill for, you know it. Like that guy.
Bob Evans.
No, Robert Evans. Yeah, Robert Evans.
Oh, I thought you were saying the sausage. Robert Evans.
Yeah, okay. Robert Evans.
Thank you.
But he lives in Robert Evans's house. So it's like if you thought of the world where he would get to still run Warner Brothers and be a studio head underneath Netflix. Yeah. Like that probably would have made
his buddy Ted, right?
Underneath his buddy Ted, then that would have been a happier situation.
That's one of the reasons I kept thinking, no, I bet Netflix ends up with it. Huh.
Now he's now going to be ejected into the sun by the Ellisons for making them pay that much more money. But this was a situation where the Ellisons needed it more, and had more money. And that's why I always felt that they were going to do it. They were going to hook her by crook. If they had to eventually just poison that board by throwing so much money at it that they would have to deal with it. Every little hurdle they cleared up within a week. They put a huge lobbying pressure on Washington to let everybody know that this was going to be a long drawn out process with Netflix. Netflix was not able to prosecute their argument that, hey, look, us buying Warner Brothers is just a pittance next to the real monster in this industry, which is YouTube. We're like barely close to it. If you just look at minutes watched, they weren't able to prosecute that argument. The real story that Paramount kept circling was, this is the industry that matters. People that make content, that sell content, and movie theaters. Like, if Netflix bought Warner Brothers, we would be at the end of whatever this version of the movie theater world is. There would be no version that the world that exists today, even in a mild heartbeat form, would ever come back, because Netflix was going to take that down to nearly zero, and movie theaters weren't.
But
they were. Like, look,
no, they
were.
No, that would be stupid to do that. The Warner Brothers side, no, they weren't. Netflix loves theaters. They're buying theaters like crazy. The only reason they don't put their Netflix movies in theaters is they have a subscription service that's built on that. If they had Warner Brothers as a studio, they would absolutely be putting movies in theaters for shorter windows and fewer of them, but not zero. They would definitely, those guys are trying to find a way to love theaters because they love movies. They just know business wise that the Netflix model doesn't let them do that. I think that's one of the things they saw with Warner is like, now we can have a little pet project that lets us put something in all these old movie theaters that we
cool. They like it as a novelty thing in the same way that Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
No, for them, but that's the problem with the theaters. The theaters need movies with long legs to make money for the theaters.
Yeah, but
because of the way the deals are structured.
That Netflix was going to shut off all the Warner Brothers movies and put them straight on Netflix. That just wasn't going to happen.
Even the stuff that they were saying said it was going to be a much different scenario than if, let's say, Paramount bought it, which wanted the more traditional way to do it.
And certainly Paramount is like, we're going to extend the window.
Exactly.
We're going to, like Paramount is certainly the friendlier option there. I'm not trying to
we can agree on that, on that Midland. But this... I always thought that the Ellisons were going to win because they needed it to be a player.
That was the analyst argument is Paramount needs it more and has the cash to make it happen.
Exactly.
Netflix has the cash, but not as much as Paramount, even though they have a lot and they don't need it as much. And
that's like, to me, this would be a scenario where it's like, okay, if Netflix buys it, it's kind of the end of an era. It's an end of a story. It's like whatever's going to come next is just going to feel different than this moment because you have a gigantic conglomerate that's just going to change the way that we do the math.
Also, Warner's cursed. I think Netflix dodged a bullet. Ask AOL. Ask Discovery.
Ask AT&T.
Ask AT&T. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Warner Brothers, I mean, because the problem is that throughout all these things, it just keeps accumulating debt, right?
And Paramount just took all the debt. This was the chance for Warner to escape its debt. And Paramount's like, no, we will eat the debt. It's fine.
Yeah. Now, for the Ellisons, they're like, yeah, whatever. What's
right?
What's this for debt?
I think it's $57 billion is roughly the banks. And those loans are guaranteed by the Ellison Trust. And then $47 billion is actually from the Ellison Trust itself. And then there's a slice that's less than $10 billion. That's like Saudi Arabian sovereign wealth fund and stuff. And those are all non-voting shares. People like to make a big deal out of that. And like, that's just a rounding figure to get it up to 31. And they don't get voting shares. So don't pay too much. I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. It's mostly the Ellison Trust stuff and the banks. And if it does go south, and if Oracle tanked, those two unlikely things to happen, but if both those things happen, then the banks are going to be calling in loans, and there's going to be trouble. So it's not like it's without its risks entirely, but Ellisons have a ton of money. They can burn through a lot of it.
Yeah, I just think that number one, we're in a consolidation point. In either case, whoever got them, there's a larger story, which is, and this is kind of a California story, that there was an era not too long ago when California had two power poles, one that was in the entertainment business and one that was in the technology business. Now LA is just a wholly owned subsidiary of Silicon Valley, of the Bay Area. Like, there is one LA based entertainment power player, Disney. Everyone else is either owned by a Silicon Valley company or New York, and that's the Comcast.
Oh yeah, because they're East Coast. I see where you're going. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But Disney's it of the LA based power players. Everyone else has to make a call outside.
Sony. Oh wait, Japan.
Yeah. Everyone else has to make a call to get something done.
Yeah.
And like that.
Although
plus
isn't Netflix actually headquartered LA now, even though they're.
Yeah, it might. Well, yeah, I always think of them as a red
distinction without a difference. Yeah,
Redwood City or whatever, and I mean, they're probably more LA than we would think, just because that's been an issue. Like, I mean, when
they talk about going to Netflix headquarters, they show that thing on Sunset, like that I drive whenever I go to Koreatown.
But still, I mean, they are a Silicon Valley company. They will never be. They're not.
They're a tech company, right?
Yeah, they're not Walt Disney. They're not Jack Warner. They're not, even Robert Evans. Like this old version of Hollywood that, that was what was special. The picture show, kid. Which is just a change. That is a huge sea change. It's a sea change for the state. That now LA is kind of a bunch of outsiders that run it, and that it's not the production capital that it used to be.
No, it's not been that for a while.
And that doesn't look like it's coming back. So, that's a big thing in terms of the industry. I think, look, the industry was going to change. It's going to change now. There was no version of this where there was going to be as many buyers by the end of the year or whenever this merger closes as there was going to be before. Like now there is going to be one less person writing checks, and that's never good for an industry. Like you always want as many people bidding on things. So Anka style, you can call your friend and say to, goose the bidding a little bit.
I do think this is the better outcome for competition, because Paramount and Warner are not guaranteed to survive on their own. So they are stronger together. And if Paramount doesn't get Warner, it's still a small player. Now it can be a bigger player. Consumer-wise, I think it would have been better if Netflix would have gotten it, because Netflix was committed to keeping HBO Max separate. And with that amount of content, you probably wouldn't see them need to raise prices. They might anyway, because it's market demand that raises prices, not anything else. But they wouldn't have been under the cost pressure of it. What you've got with Paramount is, don't forget, they're buying all of it. Netflix wasn't buying the cable networks. They weren't buying the loss parts. They were only buying the money-making parts. Paramount's buying the losing parts. They've already said they're going to cut 6,000 jobs. Netflix wasn't going to cut jobs. They were going to cut some expenses, but most of them were not jobs. Paramount's going to cut jobs for sure. And they're more likely to combine HBO Max and Paramount Plus into one package and then raise the price.
Yeah, color me cynical that anybody wasn't going to do that. I don't think that you buy that library without putting it wherever you want. And eventually,
I think they would have put stuff on Netflix, but HBO was a nice brand that they said they were going to keep independent. And I think would have been smart to keep alive as a niche brand. That's neither here nor there now. The real question, because we're almost at the hour, CNN and CBS are now going to be owned by the same company.
So behind the scenes stuff on that. CBS is a union shop. CNN is not. So for all the conversations about the idea that they would combine, that is a big barrier to that. I think, and I've said from the very beginning, this has been, I think, an unfulfilled prediction that I've had multiple times on DTNS in various forms. I think CNN is a very good brand. I think that it is a good brand that is mismanaged because of a race to the bottom on cable news that is now hilariously unprofitable. I think that if you reframed CNN, and unfortunately that means letting go of some of the most illustrious airport television taker-uppers of our time, like Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer and the other guy, like
Anderson Cooper.
Sure. I think they're all going to go, because I don't think talking heads are the way that
Anderson Cooper just left 60 Minutes. Just hilarious.
He'll have to fall into his inheritance of all the money in the world as he's a Rockefeller. But is he a Rockefeller? Where is another big family he's from?
I'll check on that for you.
Check on that. Anyway, he's super rich. Anyway, I think talking heads out in what CNN really has always been the best at, that they have defined their brand on this live coverage of a breaking story.
He's a
Vanderbilt. Sorry, not a Rockefeller. I knew that was wrong coming out of my mouth.
One of those.
But yeah, I think CNN is powerful. I just don't know if it is what this is, because right now it seems that we're at the end of the story of cable news as we knew it. It began with CNN. It began with Bernard Shaw. It began with the green fuzzy dots during the first Iraq War, Desert Storm. And it ended with Fox News, which this was the ratings report this month. They not only outrated CNN, they not only outrated MS Now, they outrated both of them combined plus 30%. Like, it's over, call the fight. There's no more version of a cable news. Everybody who still pays attention to cable news watches Fox News.
Yeah.
That's that. They won the medium. that doesn't mean that CNN can't live on. It doesn't mean that that brand doesn't mean anything. I think that it does in terms of raw video and coverage and a breaking news and coverage. I don't know if it looks like now. I don't know if it goes 24 hours. I don't know if it's not when they've got something to cover, it can be everywhere you need to go. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the case. But now is a time to think boldly with that. I think the Ellisons are probably going to. I don't think they're going to combine it with CBS. But I do think a lot of those highly priced anchors,
those are going to be among the 6,000.
I'll show you how to set up the Substack, Doug.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Give us a call. Patreon, Substack, whatever you want.
The water's fine.
We're here.
They're all going to be calling Catherine Valentine, the head of politics at Substack. Kathy Valentine is going to be on the case. She's going to be very, very busy, and you're all going to make profit. Don't worry. You're going to be fine on Substack.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what the Paramount Sky. Do you think I think it would be silly to call it Paramount Skydance Warner Brothers. Just call it Warner Brothers. Done. Make it Warner Brothers.
Nah, it's Paramount.
No, Warner Brothers is the heritage name. It's
Casablanca. More than Paramount?
Paramount's a sub brand. You didn't call it NBC. You didn't call it Universal NBC. You called it NBC Universal.
But then again, if you're, the Ellisons are the invading Mongols, they're not going to, why don't they put their name on it?
You eat the power of the vanquished. You assume their powers. You wear their clothes.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
So you would just say, but Warner Brothers is cursed. You just said it was cursed. Why would you name yourself a cursed name?
What you do with the name isn't going to matter. You're cursed. You're cursed either way.
You have inherited the curse.
Yeah, you have subsumed it.
One last thing on the Netflix side. Part of the reason why the Netflix thing made sense, and they even said it in their initial press release, is that while Netflix is obviously the company that reshaped Hollywood, they have had a really hard time making IP that sticks, making IP that is just iconic. And that's why they immediately led with, now we're the home of Harry Potter. Now we're the home of Superman and Batman and all these things that you can it doesn't matter if the last movie or television show sucked and everybody hates it. You're always going to be able to roll out a new one and people will be excited about it in a way that is not necessarily the case with a lot of the hits that Netflix has had. Who knows if they're going to be able to make another Stranger Things? Who knows if they're going to be able to make another Squid Game? Do you think that Netflix still does have an IP problem?
Yes. I think they still need to buy an IP. I think they learned a lot when they bought, what was the name of the company that had all the comics? The indie comics.
Sky. It was another Skyward. No. It wasn't the no. It wasn't the Invincible guy. It wasn't the Walking Dead guy. It was the other one. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
You all knew Vanderbilt in the chat room earlier. How come you don't know this one? But yes, I think they learned a lot when they bought that, and now they know they need to buy something big. I don't know if they even know what that is. I wonder if they Waystar Royco. It's also Vanderbilt. Thanks. That's no help. Who owns the Lord of the Rings properties? That company it's mostly a gaming company, which Netflix has got a foot in gaming too. Maybe they're able to spin for that. I don't know. I think they're on the hunt though. They're going through the flea markets of IP looking for a gem. They're going to pop some tags.
Well, now they got a breakup fee that they can apply to.
A couple $1 billion they didn't have before. Don't spend it all in one place, Netflix.
Exactly. One last thing on the way out here, because somebody say, well, they call it Trump something. Guys, and I'll say this to you guys, the DTNS audience, because you're very smart and you deserve to hear the truth. I know there's a lot of sturm and drang about Barry Weiss and CBS, and there's a lot of okay. Whenever there's a new boss and you have people that have been doing things one way for a long time, they're static. And that's what you've seen. But I would caution you to say, before you point to the idea that CBS is now all of a sudden One America News Network, what has actually changed? 60 Minutes is still 60 Minutes. And all we know is that one reporter had a story that was held back for 2 weeks because they wanted to do more interviews. And then they wound up airing the piece anyway. We know that there's a new host on a CBS nightly news show that nobody watches. And guess what? Nobody cares or notices, at least according to the ratings. Margaret Brennan still has a job. Most of the people at 60 Minutes have a job. And the only thing that Barry Weiss has done personally was hold a debate or an open air forum with Erica Kirk on a Saturday night that nobody knew was happening and didn't get watched. What is clear to me is that what CBS wants to do and what Barry Weiss wants to do is to project CBS as something that is specifically not liberal. I think that you can say that it is a rightward turn in that perspective, but the idea that it is either just supplicant to Trump, I don't think is true, and I don't think that the evidence has bared that out, or that it is particularly conservative leaning has not bared that out. I don't think that you're going to see the same situation with CNN. The reason why everyone's going to get fired at CNN, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of these people come out and say, well, Donald Trump personally hated me. And he does personally hate a lot of those people that are going to get fired, is because they're losing a tremendous amount of money. These are failing businesses. Why were the Ellisons able to buy Paramount and Warner Brothers? Because they were failing businesses. The Ellisons believe that they are going to be able to, with all their brilliance, do things in a different way and make money. Will they? To go with Tom's point of view, I think that the answer might be no, that these are failing for reasons that are outside of the content that they are serving. But they're rich enough that they can decide that they're going to play this game. We'll see whether or not it happens, but I don't think that either CBS has become particularly conservative, and I would expect the same for CNN. I think a lot of top line, very expensive talent is going to hit the door, but I don't particularly think that it's going to turn into a 24/7 bootlicking fest overnight.
No, because you know where the opening in the market is? Not there.
Yeah.
That one's taken up. There's a gaping wide hole for everything else. And you now have CBS and CNN. So you have 2 blocks you can put in the rest of those holes.
Yeah,
last question.
Yeah.
C-SPAN wants to know what's on your quad. You still C-SPAN across the boards these days? What are you doing?
You want to know what? I actually haven't. They didn't build a quad for C-SPAN.
Oh, no. Too
YouTube
bad.
TV has not built a quad for C-SPAN.
They're making it so you can put whatever you want in there, but it's not launched yet. So eventually you'll be able to do it.
I will be able to do it. And at that point, I will do it. But right now, I've just had C-SPAN. And C-SPAN's very good at telling you if there's a good thing that's happening on another C-SPAN. So I'll just literally switch between C-SPANs and leave that on.
Yeah. All right. So no quad.
No quad. And here's the reason why. Like, nobody's watching these channels anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, if nobody's watching the channels, then I don't need to pay attention to the channels because all the people are on social media talking about
your
it.
Quad should be Substack, YouTube, TikTok, and
Yeah, I mean,
seriously.
like I what I like is just raw stuff that's happening on C-SPAN. I just like, and then when there's a big thing happening, it'll be like, oh, Caroline Levitt's doing a press thing, or there's a hearing that's happening on C-SPAN 1 or blah, blah, blah.
As happy as I was that C-SPAN got deals with YouTube and Hulu, I do want them to have a more future-proof revenue source at some point. So I hope they're able to figure that out because that revenue source is also eventually going to decline.
Yeah. I mean,
this will buy them time, trust, but
look, there was a bygone era where a fresh-faced Justin Robert Young desperately wanted to pledge himself to the cause of big media companies and brands that he really, really loved because he had all these ideas about like, hey, look, the internet's coming for everything. It's going to eat everything. We need to start thinking about X, Y, and Z. And you want to know what? The much maligned New York Times is the only big media brand that has understood that and has taken it forward. And they realized here's all we need to create more and more verticals that people pay for online. And we can always bundle that up in a way that will make us money. And we can keep moving forward with the frontline news that people find nutritious, but won't pay for. They've figured it out. Nobody else has. And who?
Wall
Who would
Street
you say
Journal,
had?
Financial Times.
Okay, sure. No, yeah, sorry. I only put an asterisk there because I consider both of those
Specialty.
in their top line niche
Sure.
publications.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah. We're talking like Big City Daily, which neither of those.
Yes.
Are. Yeah.
Which that's general news has always been my love. General news has always been to bring you the story that you need to know.
Which is why I actually love the Wall Street Journal now, is because they do general news in a way that they didn't
they've
used
gotten
to.
really good at it.
Yeah,
and they've hired a lot of really, really good reporters for it. And that's because they can always say, hey, look, $300 a year, pay for it or suck eggs. Here's a hard paywall.
And also,
same with the Financial Times.
We have we're also shoveling money out of the actual stock exchange by providing services to it there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that.
All right, Jury. We could go for hours, but
of course.
Thank you for going straight in from weird things to this. I really appreciate that.
Oh, always. Whenever Tom Merrick calls, I come running.
He's not kidding. I said, hey, are you free? And he said, yes. But I didn't even tell him when or what. Just happened.
Didn't matter.
Go get politics. Wherever fine podcasts are vended. But
we got some nasty ads. We got some nasty ads.
You even
nasty ads.
You're a transition from the nasty to the nice that bore the other nasty.
Yeah.
Genius.
That's the way to go. By the way, the candidate who put out the first nasty ad got sent the show and loved it.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that's great to hear.
There's a mutual connection that showed me the text message exchange.
Fantastic. Thank you, Justin.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.